Welcome back. You're now watching the lifestyle segment on The Weekend Show. My name is Andy Madaki. About a month ago, the Nigerian Meteorological Organization, NIMET, had told us that there will be a lot of rainfalls and thunderstorms. Every year, we know that we have the rainy seasons, but we always get cases of flooding in different states. We've seen in Lagos, we've seen in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, we've seen in Kogi, we've seen in Sokoto, and in several other states. Now, the problem is, are we always going to be reactionary, or are we going to be proactive? Or could it be a situation where there's absolutely nothing we can do about it? Because we've seen such flooding affect places like New York, we've seen it in Tokyo, we've seen it in other countries. So it's not specific to Nigeria. However, we are Nigerians, we are in Nigeria. What can we do to protect ourselves when this happens and also to prevent it? Interestingly, for the last 4 years, we've had a conversation with this gentleman literally every year where he's always enlightened us and told us about what happens when this flash flooding happens. Joining us all the way from New York, we have Dr. Guje Mohammed, who's an executive secretary of the State Emergency Management Agency, speaking to us about this. Good morning, Dr. Guje.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Guje, it's quite interesting that 4 years ago we had this conversation. 3 years ago, we had the same conversation, and now I can't imagine how tasking it is for SEMA in your state whenever this flooding happens. Did we envisage this to happen this year as much as it is?
Thank you very much for having me once again. To start with, globally, according to the United Nations Office of the Disaster Risk Reduction, floods causes one of the world's most frequent destructive disasters worldwide. And when you look at the records over the years, most of the disasters that has happened, flood has been one that has been most damaging and which has cost billions of dollars worldwide. And when you come down to the level, maybe at our level of our state or at the country level, of course, conversation will continue because it's better to be discussing and saving one life than to be keeping quiet and assuming everything is normal and people are dying because of avoidable mistakes. And this year alone, in our region, what we intensify is to be more proactive than reactive. But even as at that, despite being proactive, whenever it strikes, you cannot fold your arms and sit down and assume that you have already sent the warning. But there are improvements. Last year, the sensitization and the communication is not as effective as this time around. This time around, NIMET, NISA, NEMA, Federal Ministry of Environment, all the agencies that have one way or the other related to sending message or alerts in terms of weather forecast, flooding, intensity of water, risks of water, have been so proactive. So much such that the communication is everywhere this time around. And this has significantly reduced the impact across most of the community, especially in Yobe State. And whenever we receive the message, His Excellency, our governor has directed that message should be stepped down to the community level. But of course, still the awareness, the sensitization is very poor in some communities because people are adamant, people feel because they cannot leave their ancestral homes. And that has led to new ideas of making laws that will impose relocating of people or that will make people to be relocated by some guiding laws. Because as much as you want them to leave the place, if you don't have a law that will back to forcefully relocate them, people will still stay there and it will affect them. But whichever way, if it strikes, we must respond to save lives. But sensitization is key, and it comes in different forms. Flood as a result of the heavy rainfall, flood as a result of overflow of dams, or flood as a result of windy rains that affects communities at early times of the season. But by and large, for us in Yobe State, compared to the previous years, we have the incidence is low, though it has affected some communities, and we are at the recovery phase of those community. And at this point in time, the risk at hand is that of overflow of dams towards the end of the season, which we are hoping communities at risk will be much informed before it strikes.
Dr. Goje, I must agree with you and commend you that this year there's been a massive improvement. Because I remember when we had this conversation 2 years ago, loads of communities, especially in Yobe states, were displaced. You needed all the support which you could have, and there were also a number of fatalities. This year, it's been relatively much lower, and I do believe there's a lot of impact from the enlightenment which has happened. But what do you think Yobe State is doing different? Because just last week I saw the floods in Lagos State and I saw some people complaining about it. I was a bit taken aback seeing the comments by the Commissioner of Environment, who was trying to educate people, but it did sound a bit condescending. What different thing has your state done to ensure that it's not as dire this year?
What we did differently is, one, the political leadership and local governance. His Excellency Governor Buni has taken it very personal and has opened doors for access and communication in terms of whatever we'll do to reduce the impact of flooding. Because his watchword is, why do we keep giving people relief while we can reduce the burden of flooding? The second thing that we'll do differently is use of cutting-edge technology and early warning systems. We don't take the early warning system from our sister agencies at the national level lightly. We make sure that we disseminate at all available platforms, using our partners available in the state, using our engagements across the state through the United Nations Organization and other sister agencies that we meet and engage at the early stage of the rainy season. Then the third thing that we do differently is traditional knowledge and community resilience. We make sure that as simple as embankment, as simple as providing sandbags, empty sandbags across communities, we intensify that at the early stage of the rainy season so that we'll use the traditional method to make sure that communities are safe, and this has also worked. Then we also intensify nature-based solution, restoring the ecosystem by ensuring that the agri system, the land use, and other things that we earlier take for granted, this time around we take them seriously at the early stage of the season. But then beside that, what also worked for Yobe State is the bottom-top approach. We make sure that communities are involved in all our decision-making process, in all the process to reduce the impact of the disaster, and all stakeholders are carried along. And we emphasize wherever we go, we make sure that we show them numbers. We showed the number of mortalities in the previous years, and we advocate that if we do A, B, C, D, we will reduce the impact to the BRS minimum. And this has really worked. But of course, you cannot avoid a pocket of challenges, and this has happened. But compared to the numbers in 2022, 2024, and this year, we have minimal impact of the flooding as at now.
Dr. Goje, let's talk about something, and this doesn't necessarily tie to your state. Human factor plays a major role in the outcomes during this flooding, like blockage of drainage systems, building on waterways, and the likes. And in most cases, yes, we blame nature. I watched the US president express his thoughts about climate change. I don't know how that has been for the likes of you, seeing his speech at the United Nations General Assembly. But this does a disservice to the people who should learn that as citizens, as people, we contribute to the outcome of this flooding. Can you speak a lot more to the role we play that makes the situation worse when the thunderstorms and rains happen?
Yeah, it's so sad as human beings and people that are learned, especially in urban places, to see us blocking drainages. But this has to do with our mindset. And climate change is not a rocket science. It's something that we see over time. You can see places that came from sub-Saharan countries, regions. We have seen how a place, Hitato, have never seen rainfall in the desert, and now it's seeing heavy rain, or a place that has been seeing rain is being deserted now. But beside that, in the urban places, when government construct roads and drainages, the mindset of people, of users, that government is responsible to clearing drainages alone, it causes one of the worst consequences when we block waterways. But if sensitization is high, if people are aware, if there are laws, especially in cities where if you block the drainages, there will be some consequences. And if some of these laws are being reviewed, like the laws of cutting trees, you define that you will pay. I think if you review the laws, they're as old as our grandparents, where the fee is just a token amount in naira that doesn't even make people to feel deterrent in cutting the trees or blocking waterways. So this will make a lot of difference if there will be review of our laws and people will be aware and people will take up the responsibility. Government will construct road and drainages, but owning the drainage, ensuring that it is not blocked, is the responsibility of the end users, which at the end of the day, the consequences will also affect the end users, not the government. But of course, overall, the burden of restoring life after disaster lies with the government. Climate change is affecting us, and if there's anything that we can do in terms of reducing the impact of polluting in our localities, I think it's a key responsibility that must be taken seriously. Reviewing of the laws, imposition, and as well as also making sure that people lessons are served on people so that they will serve as a deterrent to others is put in place. That would make a lot of difference to reduce the impact.
Dr. Goje, so this year particularly, the northwestern region of Nigeria has experienced a lot of rainfall. And you've spoken about how, with Jobe State, for instance, you're no longer just reacting, but trying to be proactive. What I wonder about is the fact that we suffer from extremes in Nigeria. The northwestern states and the northeastern states have also suffered from water shortages and poor rainfall in the past couple of years. What are we doing to ensure that when the rains stop and it becomes proper sunny and dry, this water maybe can be retained with some form of dams or storage systems where they don't have to go half the year without water and half the year with excess water? Is there something being put in place for this? Or should there be?
Yeah, in most of the places, especially in our place, we are into water harvesting technology. And water harvesting entails providing as local as art dams to save the water that hitherto goes into the communities and leads to flooding, and use it for irrigation and for livestock farming, and as big as also using technologies and creating equipped dams that will be used much after the rainy season for dry season farming. But above that, there are some innovations and a lot of new crops that people now plant immediately after the season that also support the livelihood of household much after the rainy season. Especially now that dry season farming is more technologically based with equipment and improved seedlings that are used, and within 2-3 weeks, most of these crops will yield the required result. The water harvesting technology has really worked. But for you to harvest water, that channel, that dam at the outskirts of the town must be provided so much such that it does not overflow and also cause havoc to that community. So locally it's being done, and government has made a lot of efforts. An example is one community in Yobe State where they have been experiencing flooding over time, and as a result of the measure, an art dam has been created, and that art dam is being used now for dry season farming, and you will see youths across those communities engaging in dry season farming immediately after the rainy season. And this is working, and I believe these are innovations that going into the future, government, private sector, and communities should look forward to, so that while the water comes at high speed, it doesn't cause havoc to our communities. But of course, we also use it at the end of the season.
Thank you. I think that's a good place to leave it. Dr. Goje Mohammed, Executive Secretary, State Emergency Management Agency, Yobe State. Always a pleasure having you on this show, and thanks for staying up this late or early to join us with this conversation.
Thank you very much, Nabilo. Thank you very much.
You're
Anytime.
welcome.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.